what's going on? I'm going to try something a little bit different today. It's going to be kind of a less formal thing. I'm making this the flagship video in our new series here on this channel. It's going to be called Coffee with Z, right? And basically what we'll do is we'll sort of talk about some current events type things, talk about what's going on in the world, or just in general, random stuff that happens to be on my mind, different topics, whatever. So start this off today. We could talk about what's going on in the world right now with coronavirus, which I already did one video about. And the gist of that video was, for better or worse, we're all kind of under pseudo quarantine right now. And I have some mixed emotions about that. There's a part of me that sees merit in all of us kind of hunkering down right now to try to stop this thing dead in its tracks. There's a part of me that thinks that, all right, maybe it's overkill, and at some point, hey, we're just gonna have to press on one way or the other, okay? Hopefully for the better in that regard. So this video here, what I wanna focus on today, in this kind of, like I said, less formal setting under Coffee with Z, is, or I should say are, the things that I'm seeing going on outside right now, okay? And I'm gonna say this, these things that I see people doing and these things that I see happening, I understand that people are taking these initiatives with the best of intentions. Their heart is completely and totally in the right place. I'm not discrediting them or bashing them for it, okay? I'm not trying to be Mr. Negativity here and just put people's efforts down and rip them apart, okay? So keep that in mind over here. It's just what I'm seeing is indicative of a couple of different things, okay? It's indicative of, number one, pack mentality, where people see something or they hear something and they just instinctively and blindly jump right into following it without really thinking about it. And a lot of times people do stuff like that based upon emotions, right? And in this particular case, the emotions of fear or paranoia, right? Which I can understand that, I can, right? But again, a lot of times, like I said, pack mentality, people just instinctively follow this without thinking it through. And I'm starting to see a lot of that stuff happen out here right now. The other thing is that I think that some people who are taking these initiatives and trying to set certain policies, which we'll talk about in a second, I think that they're doing it, it has nothing to do with, as some people are insisting, oh, it's about people who have a little bit of authority and they're on a power trip. No, I don't think it's about that. I think it's about people who are in a position where they do have a little bit of authority and their mentality is such, like a lot of other people's, that, well, I have to do something because doing nothing is wrong, or doing very little is also the same thing as doing nothing, so I need to do something. And here's the thing. I'm a firm believer in the whole concept that more in life is lost by indecision than by wrong decision. But the thing is, I don't think that applies to every scenario in life. There are definitely certain circumstances where sometimes doing nothing, and in this particular case, I won't say nothing is necessarily the right move, but sometimes doing nothing to very little is actually the better of the two things to potentially do. So we'll talk about that here just over the next couple minutes. But again, I'm not trying to rip anybody. I'm not trying to bash people's efforts. I get that people are doing these things with their heart in the right place and with the best of intentions. But I just want to point a few things out, that when you take emotion out of the equation and you look at things logically and rationally based upon the facts, okay, you're going to see them a lot differently. And let me get started off with number one, and that's people who are wearing rubber gloves right now, okay? I get it. I understand the theory of why you think rubber gloves are helping to keep you safe and not contract this virus, okay? Now look, full disclosure, I'm not a doctor. I'm not in a position to give anybody medical advice. I'm not telling you you need to do any of these things I'm about to talk about here. I'm just sharing a few opinions with you. But again, where I'm no medical professional, I also don't feel that you need to have the letters MD attached to your last name to exercise common sense and just look at things without emotion and logically. So on the subject of rubber gloves, let's look at how you get the virus, right? It's not that you touch something and then because you touched it, it gets on your skin, gets into your pores, and it seeps into your bloodstream somehow, okay? You're getting it by the virtue of you touched something that had the germs on it, right? And then, you went and you scratched your ear or something like that. You had a runny nose and you did this, or you got an itch on your face, right? That's how you're getting it. You're transferring it from what you touched to your face, and that's how you're picking it up. Now, and I see people who wear rubber gloves, yeah, they have the gloves on, but yet they still touch their face constantly. I mean, what are you really accomplishing with the rubber gloves on if that's the case? You're not accomplishing anything. You really aren't. You're just taking the gloves, you're taking the germs, putting them on the plastic, and then from the plastic to your face instead of from bare skin onto your face, okay? So, the rubber gloves, I just really don't see the merit in that. I really don't. Now look, people can disagree with me. I mean, look, my father is on the whole rubber glove bandwagon right now. I know other people who are on it too. And look, I'm not making fun of you. I'm not passing judgment on you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not going to call you out on it because it's none of my business. I'm just sharing my opinion with you here as we're having a cup of coffee. Now, the next thing, and it's in the spirit of rubber gloves, are the masks, right? And it's along those same exact lines, right? We're not used to having things on our face. But I see people who wear the masks that are constantly fidgeting with them and adjusting them with their hands, not necessarily on their face, but in close enough proximity to the point where it's starting to raise a question of, is that really actually worth it? In fact, maybe is that kind of putting you at a incrementally more increased risk because of the fact that you just have your hands in closer proximity to your face more frequently than you would otherwise? Again, I mean, just food for thought. I'm just throwing it out there. And the same thing too is that, all right, even though I don't necessarily think that that's a net positive, I can understand why people would do that if they're in the grocery store in close proximity to people. But this is where I think people are getting carried away. All right, it's, you get people walking down the street. I live in a fairly busy street. I see people walk by my house and they've got masks on. I don't know, maybe they just don't like my aftershave or I put on a little too much cologne, who knows? But anyway, point being, it's like you see people outside, they've got the masks on. I mean, you're outdoors, okay? You're not really near people. You're by yourself walking down the street. I see people driving in cars now. They're in the car and they got the mask on. They're by themselves. And you know what? If you're a doctor or you're a nurse and you're in a hospital, absolutely, I think wearing a mask is the right thing to do. I would add to that too, if you're somebody who's elderly or you have, an underlying health issue of some sort and you go out, then I totally see where wearing the mask comes into the equation. But for the average person, like I said, I think it becomes a net neutral move to maybe puts you at slightly more risk. All right. Now, a few other things that I see happening out here. You go to the grocery store, right? And the grocery store that I go to, they've got the deli and the butcher shop side by side, okay? And everything there is enclosed in glass. But the thing about it is they've got tape marked off at 6 feet. You can't get basically within 6 feet of the glass enclosure or you're gonna get shot pretty much, right? So let me think about this for a second, right? So if I'm understanding this the right way, everything's enclosed in glass. I can't get within 6 feet of that thing. But I go to the fruit and produce section and everything is open air. All the fruits, produce, and vegetables are completely and totally exposed. There's no tape, there's no 6-foot no-go zone, there's no boundary layer, nothing like that. I can get right up on the fruits and produce. I can touch everything and put it back to check and see if it's ripe. I can sit there, I can hang out, smoke a cigarette. Not that I smoke, but whatever. You get the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, so it's like, I can't get within 6 feet of the glass enclosure, but I can get right up on the fruits and produce. All right, and look, I'm not saying this to try to bash anybody. I get that the people who did that are trying to do good. Their heart's in the right place. They're trying to make an effort, but that goes back to what I talked about a minute ago. Sometimes less is more. Okay, when you do these types of things, I mean, I think a lot of times people are doing these things without really stopping and thinking through what it is that they're doing. All right, same thing like when you go to the checkout counter, for example. All right, the 6-foot boundaries at the checkout counter, which we'll talk about in a second, that I think is a positive. Okay, but the other day I went to go pay, slide the credit card into the machine. The credit card machine is wrapped in plastic. I mean, it was insane. This thing was covered in cellophane, 3 or 4 layers deep. I said to the kid working there, I said, hey buddy, I said, I'm not yelling at you or being critical here or anything, but don't you think pointing at the credit card machine, this is kind of stupid? And he said, what do you mean? I said, think about this. If somebody's sick or they have the germs in their hands, whatever the case is, they go and they touch the credit card machine, right? The germs get on the piece of plastic that you have covering this thing, and then the next person comes and touches that. So it's what is this really accomplishing? He said, you got a good point. I said, yeah. I said, you may want to pass that one up the line and let them think about it. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning these things here, okay, is that when you start doing these types of things, it starts to have a big psychological impact on people, okay? And a term that I don't use loosely, psychological warfare, okay? It really is a form of psychological warfare because, as I said a few minutes ago, it's pack mentality. People jump on things without thinking about it, right? Now, when people see, when they go out, everybody's got gloves on, everyone's wearing a mask, people driving in their cars are wearing masks, you can't go within 6 feet of the deli, the credit card machine is totally wrapped in plastic, oh my God, this is Armageddon at end times, this is really bad. And make no mistake about it, look, this situation is bad. I'm not trying to downplay it and make light of it, it's bad, okay? But when people start doing these things, it creates the illusion, and that's the word, the illusion that this thing is worse than what it is. It doesn't mean that it's not bad, it is, but it creates the illusion of it being exponentially more severe and worse than what it is, to the point, and this is the moral of what I want to talk about today here while having a cup of coffee, is it's starting to lay a foundation for the new normal. And yeah, I'm saying that condescendingly in a mocking tone of voice because That's the thing. We are in totally abnormal times right now. Abnormal times should not dictate new normals. You got to do what you got to do to get through this. And look, if you feel more comfortable wearing gloves and a mask, God love you for it, okay? I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to stop anything. I'm not even going to say boo to you about it. I'm just saying I think it's a little bit of overkill and it's not doing what you think it's doing, okay? Same thing with this thing about marking off 6 feet at the deli where you can get right up on the produce and stuff like that. What I do think is appropriate is when you go to the checkout where they mark off with tape 6-foot intervals. I completely think that's the right thing to do, okay? Which ties in with the whole less is more, okay? Doing nothing and letting business go on as usual is the wrong thing to do, okay? But putting 6 feet away from the deli, wrapping up the credit card machine, I mean, come on, that's overkill. 6 feet at the checkout, I think that's reasonable. Maybe meter the number of people who go in there, that's also reasonable. This thing about, putting down tape everywhere, and then some grocery stores now are enforcing you must wear a mask if you come on the property, which I have a lot of mixed feelings about that, okay? As a private business, I suppose that you do have grounds because of standards of service. Like you used to see those signs a long time ago at in coffee shops, no shirt, no shoes, no service. There is a precedent there that dictates that, yeah, private businesses can establish codes of conduct, dress codes and whatnot on the campus. They can do that. But, to insist that people do it, okay, it's a little bit dangerous. Insisting workers do it, okay, hey, a lot of companies have dress codes, okay, that's, I could see that there could be a strong case for that. Maybe you have to if you're an employee there. But anyway, that's a whole other subject, another time altogether. The point simply being here is that, look, I know that people have their heart in the right place. They're trying to do the right thing with all of this. I get it. I think that's commendable. But I think here that we also have to put some emphasis on the fact that we may be setting a dangerous precedent that's going to create a new normal that not only we don't need, that we shouldn't necessarily be getting involved in, because we're also going to be setting simultaneously a precedent where we're just going to concede our freedoms without thinking about them, and we're going to do it for irrational reasons based upon fear and not logic. Again, I get people's hearts are in the right place, they're trying to do the right thing, but just saying, when you take emotion out of the equation, you look at it logically, you look at it rationally, you see things a lot differently, and I'm just saying, maybe there's something to be said for that here. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. This is the first installment of Coffee with Z. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Until our next coffee engagement, take care, protect yourself, God bless, and stay safe out there.